After a slight delay due to my crippling USMNT depression from that video, um, Euro 2024 round of 16 reactions and quarterfinal predictions are here. We know the final eight. The teams have been cut down by a third from 24 to 8, and we got our 8, and we know what the picture looks like. So let's not stall. Let's get straight into it. And first, let's talk about this Switzerland Italy game. It's been a few days now, but looking back, and I know the video where I made my predictions for the round of 16 and the entirety of the knockout stage, obviously recorded without audio. I'm new to this, but with that being said, I did pick Switzerland to win this game, and I think most people who had watched both teams in the tournament so far would have picked that. Switzerland, despite giving up a late equalizer, they did give Germany a tough game, and I think the only game that I would say that they really didn't look solid in was the Scotland game, and I said it in the other video, nobody heard, but I think the reason is because Scott McTominay man marked Granit Xhaka, and I didn't see and didn't see before the game and didn't see during the game that any Italian was going to be able to do that, and they did not. Xhaka sat back. He played quarterback. He bossed the game. He had a sensational performance. Just absolutely brilliant from Granit Xhaka. Um, and Italy just looked flat. I mean, and they've looked flat kind of the entirety of this tournament. I'm pulling up the stats of this game right now. Um, they by the end of the game they had more possession, but when you're looking at shot attempts, um, 11 shots, one on target, all game from Italy. I mean, that first half was completely bossed by Switzerland, and when you get a goal seconds into the second half to make it 2-0, you can really put the game to bed, and that's what Switzerland did, and that's why some of these stats make it look like Italy really, played well and made it a close game. This wasn't a close game. Um, Switzerland dominated the ball. They dominated outside the ball. They won the back well, and Italy just they looked like a team lacking an identity, and I think they're in a similar position maybe to the U.S. men's national team in that, or maybe more so to I'm trying to like to the Spanish um, a few years ago after that generational run that they had, where you know the guys of the past aren't there anymore, and yet you're still trying to play that style of football. Their identity for years and years and years is based on guys like Chiellini and Bonucci, and they're not there anymore. And I know, Calafiori had a good tournament and Bastoni's a great player, but I mean, the talent for Italy isn't that's not the strength. That's not the strength. And tournament football, you want to play to your team's strengths. You want to make sure that everybody on your team you're getting the best out of them, and that's not what they're doing. And Switzerland did exactly that. Specifically with Granit Xhaka, they've basically just said, "Yeah, what you did at Leverkusen was awesome. Can you do it for us?" And they've built a team around him, and it has worked for them. And going into the game, this is kind of what I expected, and it's what we got. Um, I was really impressed by Switzerland. Yeah, Germany, Denmark. Um, I picked Germany to win. I didn't think it was going to look like this. And for people picking Germany to win the tournament and German truthers and German fans, I think this was a worrying game, because all group stages, maybe up until that last game against Switzerland, they looked really, really unbeatable almost. And that game against Switzerland, I think a lot of people wrote it off as like, well, they're already through, so what do they really have to play for? But whether it's, lethargy from not playing to their full extent against Switzerland, or just truly being exposed by a team that's to that level, really showing that Hungary and Scotland aren't at that level, they didn't look great. They conceded first. And it was called back for a very, very narrow offsides, correct decision, but very narrow. Barely had more of the ball, 54% possession for them. They had 9 shots on goal, which was great, but they really allowed Denmark to play the game that they wanted to. And I have to say that the shot attempts for Germany, a lot of them came late in the game. A lot of the opportunities came late in the game once things had opened up. I think Denmark set up really well defensively. They made it really difficult for the Germans to play at them, and they did really good on the counter. And until that first goal went in, I honestly watching that game might have been leaning towards changing my pick because the Germans were being shut down and they couldn't play the way that they wanted to. Musiala and Verts didn't start. Who did they start in instead of Verts? They played Sane, which I don't. I understand the reasoning because when you have two of those guys in the same area with Verts and Musiala, they get in each other's way. But I think it was noticeable that the Germans just they didn't know how to break the team down. And when you're lacking a true finisher, Kai Havertz is a great hold up player, but he's not a pure finisher. And so, the half chances he was getting, he doesn't put them away. Um, it comes down to a close penalty and a close offsides, but I really do think, two correct decisions, but close decisions go the other way. And we're talking about a Danish team that upset the hosts. Um, I think a lot of German weaknesses got exposed in that game. And if you're a German fan, I know a lot of people are saying that they're going all the way and that they're beating Spain. I didn't see that last game. Against Scotland they looked sensational, and against Hungary they looked great. But I kind of feel like I'm seeing more of the Germany I expected to see before the tournament. A German side that, while very good, very talented, they're new to this. They're new to their identity. They haven't had a lot of time with their new coach. They haven't had a lot of time together, and they're still building those relationships and understanding the system. And when you face a tougher team, it shows up. It showed up against Switzerland and it showed up against Denmark. And the competition is just going to get tougher from here on out. For the Danish, I think they hold their heads high. This was a tournament I didn't expect them to do very much, and to be honest, they could be through to the next round if not for those two really close calls. So, I think a lot of the guys that were there are going to get ushered out, and I think the unfortunate thing for Denmark, and I said it in my first video, is that they didn't bring up a lot of young players for this tournament. There's a few, but there weren't enough, and I think that's going to hurt them in the next few years. I don't know how long guys like Christian Eriksen and Christensen and Schmeichel have left, but these guys are coming towards the end, and when they get there, the younger guys haven't really been given an opportunity to play with them, learn from them, start getting that experience, start manipulating the system like Belgium has. They've kind of added in these new players and started to shift the system and started that process early, which I think is a great idea. And I don't think Denmark did that. That's the one negative for them, because otherwise I think that they really outperformed the class of team that they are. The age that they had in the team was a worry for me. And, I think it's going to catch up to them at some point, but it didn't catch up to them in this tournament. And so the Danish fans can be happy that they got another tournament out of that golden generation. This is exactly how I expected this game to go. Especially if I had known too that, well, I expected Southgate wouldn't make changes. I think we all expected that. That's just who he is. And you know, with that expectation, I think we all expected England wasn't going to be the best. I think the problem with them right now is that they have so many players who want to play the exact same way. That's one problem. And I think the other problem is there's too much pressure that comes with the England shirt, and these players don't know how to deal with it. And yeah, obviously, there's pressure that comes with every national team shirt, but I feel like these players almost play afraid. Every single player on this England team, at least that we see in the starting lineup, is a type of player. When you look at that front line, Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, Saka, and Foden. None of them want a through ball. Not a single one of them wants to make a run in behind and receive it like that. They all want the ball to feet, which allows teams like Slovenia, like Denmark, like the teams that they play in the groups, to just sit back on them, set up defensively. And England, they're getting the ball to feet, but when they turn to face up these players, there's three guys there. And I would say, like, a lot of the players they have are talented enough to take on all those players. But that's where the fear factor comes in, the pressure. And you've seen it before with these England teams. When a player makes a mistake, they get chastised. I mean, it's like career ending when an English player makes a mistake. It's for the national team. You've seen it happen to Beckham, and yeah, obviously recovered, but I'm sure there are players that you can pick out and say, make a mistake and they're done. What happened to Saka and Rashford and Sancho at the last Euros, and now two of them aren't here. Two of them aren't here, and whether or not that's a direct effect of the criticism they got, we can't know for sure, but it affects your mentality and it makes it hard. And so when these players are being presented with, all right, you're getting the ball to feet and now you have to take on the whole team, they're afraid. They're afraid to do it. And that's why I think the substitutions and the players that have come off the bench have done a lot better, because there's a lot less pressure on you when you come off the bench. And so a guy like Eze or a guy like uh, Ivan Tony, like they come off the bench and they don't have that same pressure on their shoulders, and so they can really show their stuff. I think the best example of that is Cole Palmer, and I think that's the duality of it with Cole Palmer is that one, he's the coldest player on the field. He does not care. The pressure never gets to him. Doesn't matter how big the moment is. You see it with the way he takes penalty kicks. Like he said, I'm not going to miss a penalty. This man doesn't feel pressure. That combined with the fact that he's coming off the bench, he's got ice in his veins and he's just out there having fun and he's taking players on and he's having success. And I think Bukayo Saka and Phil Foden, if they had the bravery or like the drive to take on these players, they would. But I think a mix of Southgate's really defensive, really possession based system alongside the fact that there's so much pressure on them and there is the whole team back defensively, it's really difficult for these players to say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take on these guys. That pressure's there, that fear's there, the fear of the manager being upset with you, the fear of the fans chastising you if you make a mistake. If you make a mistake in this current England system, you're getting told you were supposed to possess the ball. Don't run at defenders. And if you're an England player and you make a mistake trying to do something extra like that, it's over. So I think the pressure on these players is tremendous. They don't want to play the ball forward. They want to go back. That's why you see Foden passing more times to Jordan Pickford than to Harry Kane. He's afraid to try and go forward. He's afraid to take risks. It's hard. Um, and that's why I think that England clearly perform better when their substitutes are in the game. And I don't know how you fix that. I don't, because, if you start, I don't think Cole Palmer would feel that effect, but if you start Eze and Ivan Tony in the next game in a quarterfinal, they're going to feel the same pressure. And then Foden and Saka coming off the bench, they're still going to feel the pressure, right? Um, I think Kobe Mainu is another player who hasn't felt the pressure, whether it's because he's so young and he's like, yeah, nobody's going to blame me if I mess up. He knows that he doesn't have that same pressure on his shoulders, or whether he's just cold like Cole Palmer, whose jersey I'm repping, by the way. It's hard to say, but I think the two best players for England so far in this tournament have been Mainu and Palmer, and I think it speaks volumes that they're two young players who have just come through who don't really feel that pressure. Um, from the Slovakian side of things, I think they did everything they needed to do. In the end, that England star power is just too much. And when the substitutes came into the game, it loosened up and it was much harder for Slovakia to play the same way they'd been playing all game. They're unfortunate to give up the goal late like they did, but as soon as that game went to overtime, it was over because there was no way England were not scoring again. Um, they held on for more than 90 full minutes, and in the end, it wasn't enough. But they hang their hats high, they hang their heads high, and proud of this tournament. They made it further than they probably expected to. Ivan Stranz, great tournament from him, multiple goals, and in the end, it's a positive tournament for them. And in the end, that game was a positive game for them. If not for a Jude Bellingham bicycle kick in stoppage time, they are playing in the next round. So I think for them, they take that as a win. For England, it's worrying because I don't exactly know how they fix the problems they have. It's tough when the problems are, obviously I don't like Southgate's system for these players. I don't think it works. I also think it's unfortunate that all the players want to play the same way. If they had a winger who wanted to get in behind, I think next game would be the perfect time to give that player a start. But who do you put on the bench? Because I think the four forwards who are in there on paper are the four best. It's just they all want to play the same way, and they're all feeling the pressure, and it makes it really difficult for them to play at the level that they do for their clubs. Um, this is another game that went how I expected, except for the fact that Georgia scored first. I would have guessed that Georgia would get a goal. Um, that's just how they play. But I think Spain really showed their brilliance in this game. And I'm not even talking about an attacking sense, but teams have struggled all tournament to deal with this counterattack of Georgia, the energy that Georgia plays with, the system that they have working for them. And Spain figured it out. And in the second half, like they were like, okay, you're only countering with two guys. We're not going to bother getting back into our shape. We're just going to man mark both of them. Man mark both of them. And it worked. And it shut Georgia's counterattack down completely. They couldn't get anything going in the second half. So I think they showed the brilliance of their players, the brilliance of their manager. And I was really impressed with Spain in this game. Going forward, it was also brilliant. Lamine Yamal, struggled in front of goal, but absolutely brilliant player, taking defenders on. Nico Williams, same thing on the other side. I mean, they are blessed with brilliant attackers. And unlike the English side, I think both of these players are players that, yeah, I'll take the ball at feet, but I'll also take the ball in behind. And more so, and this applies more so to Phil Foden, but when you have a player that wants to come back for the ball, okay, well then you need an overlapping outside back, and Marc Cucurella has done that brilliantly for Nico Williams. So if Nico Williams decides, hey, I want to come back for the ball, which he does a lot of the time, he wants to come back, he wants to pick it up, and he wants to dribble at the finish, just like Saka and Foden. Cucurella is overlapping him every time, and that just creates so much more going forward for Spain because they have both options on both sides. Lamine Yamal wants to get in behind, fine. We're going to have a midfielder drift out there, and he's going to sit in that spot. The Spanish system, it works so well. They've got such chemistry. The players know how to play off each other well, and nobody's getting in each other's way. And this is a team. I think the choice to play Cucurella has been brilliant because he fits with the Spanish side that they're putting out there more than Grimaldo. Fabian has been absolutely sensational in the midfield, and I just think like that's this team, this Spanish team almost feels more like a club team, and sometimes with a national team, it's like, okay, this is the group of players I have. I have to build the system around them, right? When you have a club team, it's like, okay, I'm going to buy this guy and this guy and this guy, and I'm going to piece together my system. It feels like Spain have the pieces to the puzzle and they put it together, while the rest of the teams in the tournament have like only edge pieces or only middle pieces, and they're trying to force the puzzle to work, and it's just not working. But for Spain, it's perfect. It's working the way it is, and I honestly, they've really impressed me. And I think it has something to do with the manager choice. He knows these players on an intimate level because he's come up with them through the youth academy system in Spain, and he knows his players to an intimate level. And so instead of him not understanding, not knowing how his players fit together, he knows all these players well, and he built the puzzle for these players. He knew what type of player Lamine Yamal was. He knew what type of player Nico Williams was. He knew these players so well that he built the system around them. And he's had years and years and years to do it. So you're seeing a Spanish side that, despite the fact that they're so young, they look polished and experienced in the system because they've been playing it for years and years and years in the youth academy. And it shows. It really shows. And I think the Spanish team have something really special here. And it feels to me like, in a tactical sense, and an organizational, a structural sense, that they're miles ahead some of the other teams in this tournament who almost feel like they're still trying to learn the systems and the tactics as they go along. This Spanish side feels like they've learned it like 6 years ago, and it's like super easy to them. They feel like veterans in this team, veterans in this system, and that's essentially what they are because they've been playing with this coach and with this system for years. It's really fun to watch. I think I don't want to get into it, but I picked in my tournament, I picked Spain to win this game. And so far, every single one of these games that we've talked about, I picked them correctly, but I don't think that was a very hard thing to do to this point. But I think Switzerland were probably the favorites, and I think that Germany were probably the favorites, and England were probably the favorites, and Spain were the favorites. But I picked Spain to go all the way. And at this point, I have to say, I would be shocked if they don't. And I'm not picking the semifinals in this video or the finals in this video because I feel like it's unfair if I picked my tournament winner before the group stage and before the knockout round and before the quarterfinals. I got my 2 picks and that's it. I don't get another one. I'll pick the games individually, but I can't pick beyond that anymore, and that's fine. We'll review these games and we'll talk about the games coming up, and that'll come later in the video. But that being said, I'm sticking with Spain no matter what. If I were able to change, and I'm not letting myself change, but if I were able to, I wouldn't, because Spain is winning this thing. Talk about a team that clearly doesn't know the system. You could point to either one of these teams who were trying to put square blocks in a circle hole and triangle blocks in the oval hole, and what the hell is going on with these two teams? I listened to this game on the radio. Um, it was a snooze fest, and I kind of expected it to be. And every time that these teams have played, you look back at 2018, it's not that both of these teams want to set up somewhat defensively and counter. And as Belgium now more so than ever with the speed that they have going forward, both of these teams want to sit back defensively and counter. That's fine. And both these teams, I think, did very well in this game defensively. They made it very difficult for the other team to score. When you look at the statistics from this game, 2 shots on goal for each team, despite the France had 19 shots in total, 5 shots for Belgium, and each of these teams is only putting 2 shots on goal. Possession was fairly even, but when we're talking about shots on goal, both teams had chances, but they were not easy chances. I mean, Belgium made it really hard for France going forward, and France made it really hard for Belgium going forward, and it got cagey. Neither team wanted to take a risk because they knew that what had got them there and what had got them to that point in the game was the way that they had set up defensively. And so, if you want to pour more men forward, you're going to have to sacrifice that setup defensively. And neither team was willing to do so. And in the end, it comes down to an unfortunate Jan Vertonghen own goal. Um, with France, I think in the past, and this was something I heard a lot going into the tournament. I think in commercials in the United States, they were saying it. France, when we get a chance, we take it, we score. That's that. I was hearing that all the time. Maybe it was on the radio station I've been listening to the games on, but like the advertisements, France, when we get an opportunity, we take it, and that's how they used to be. In the 2018 World Cup, they had a system down. Yes, the defense was pretty much the same, not the same players, but lockdown defense. The questions were all like, well, I wouldn't say the questions, but lockdown defense has stayed the same. The difference is back then they could score at will. They got the chance, they took it. Giroud, sensational. Mbappe, sensational. And I think maybe this is the case, and maybe this is how Deschamps wants to do it, that they don't really care as much about the Euros. The World Cup is what they care about. And so they use the Euros as a testing ground, because in the last tournament, I also think France struggled to score goals. I mean, Mbappe's only Euro goal came in between the last 2 Euros, came in this Euro on a penalty. They don't know how to score right now. And I think, judging on previous experience, I think they would figure out how to score for the next World Cup. But right now, they're not a threat to me because, yeah, they can defend, but they can't score. They can't score. They don't know how to play going forward. There's not chemistry between Mbappe and Thuram and Griezmann and Dembele in the way that there used to be chemistry with Giroud and Mbappe and Griezmann and all those players in attack. It used to flow in attack for France, and both of the last 2 World Cups, it was like, oh, France are forward, they're going to score. They're going to score every time. And the Euros have not been that way. And it makes me think that, I do think then that, Deschamps uses the Euros as more of a time to learn before the World Cup, which isn't a bad thing. He's prioritizing the World Cup. If you want to do that, that's fine. But that makes it that, this French team is not dangerous going forward in this Euros. They're not. Mbappe, I wouldn't say he looks poor. He just looks like he doesn't know what is wanted from him. And that might be the case. The tactics might not be solidified yet. And this is kind of a new generation of French players. They're phasing out the old one. Giroud has barely played. So I think, unlike the Spanish team, they're, despite the fact that they might have more experience in the side, attacking wise, they're still learning the system. So I don't think that's a bad thing from a French perspective. What I do think it means is that they're going to struggle for the rest of this tournament. No matter how far they go, they're going to struggle. And their opponent will be, and yes, it says 3-0, and that wasn't the score, but that was the score on penalties. Um, their opponent will be Portugal, who, in my opinion, have looked sensational until the Georgia game, right? And for the Georgia game, they rotate. But, and this is the risk you take with rotating players, they looked rusty last game. They looked rusty. They looked like, the chemistry had slipped away a little bit. The understanding that maybe they had developed in the first two group games and the warm up games just wasn't there anymore. And that happens. And I also think that it hurt that Slovenia set up so defensively. I think that's the hardest team to try and learn your system again against. If they had been playing in a very open game, like some of the other games in the round of 16, like the Turkey Austria game, if they had been playing Turkey or Austria, I think they would have figured it out within 20 minutes and gotten going again. But it's hard to figure things out again when you're being frustrated consistently in attack. I think for Portugal, I would not worry as much as, France and England, where it's like for France and England, we don't know what our system is going forward and we can't figure out how to score goals. For Portugal, they have figured out how to score goals. It's just, they're a little rusty right now. The thing I would worry about, and this is maybe a bold take, but Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, he hasn't scored goals in this tournament. I'm not worried about his individual performance. In my opinion, outside of the fact that last game he was trying to do it all himself and score from everywhere, I think he's looked good. But I think that's where the problem with Ronaldo comes in. When things get tough, he doesn't open up to his teammates. He doesn't, you know, I think when things get tough for certain players, they turn to their teammates and they try and do it as a team. And that's what I think you should do. And I think Ronaldo, when things get tough for him, tries to do it on his own. And you see it in the way that, as a captain in the first half, the chances are going wide. And he's the most experienced player in the team. And yet he's getting frustrated and yelling at other attackers for missing the chances early on. With his experience, he should know, look, guys, this is a knockout game. We're playing against a really defensive team. The chances are going to come. We got to stay calm and take them when they come. But instead, he's getting frustrated and he's not showing his experience. And I think it also shows up in the way that he behaved after missing his penalty. And yes, it's passion. It's hard. You miss a penalty and you think that might be it for you, but you're the captain of your team. And I mean, some of the guys on that Portuguese team are young and they're in overtime of a knockout game for maybe the first time, and it's really difficult. The mental side of the thing is really tough. You're trying to fight with yourself to keep the energy going, to not be stressing, because one goal and you're done. That the mind game is where it gets to you in penalty shootout, in an overtime. And now they're turning and seeing their captain, maybe arguably the best player in the world, not in my opinion, but he is the second best player of all time in my opinion. He's crying, and you're turning and you're having to help him out, when in reality, with how little experience you have, it needs to be the other way around. Ronaldo at halftime needed to be going around to his younger teammates and being like, we got this, come on, come on. And he didn't show up as a leader there, and that's what worries me. And it has worried me with Ronaldo for a long time. Is I think Ronaldo as a captain leads more by example than what he says. I don't think he's a good leader in the sense that he's not going to hype up his teammates. He's not going to motivate guys in talking to them. He's going to motivate them by playing hard and putting in more work than anybody else and stuff like that. But when times get tough, especially, and this happens with Portugal a lot. I don't think it happened with clubs as much because the clubs were filled with talented players. But with Portugal, a lot of the time, national teams aren't built the same way that club teams are. It's more difficult to win national team games. The system's different. The players don't have experience with each other, and you need a captain to show up. I think in the national game, captains are more important than in the club game. And Ronaldo hasn't been a good captain for Portugal, in my opinion, especially in this tournament. I think it's been difficult. It's been difficult for Ronaldo, and I think in some of the early games he really impressed me. Like when he, passed to Bruno Fernandes instead of taking on the chance himself. I was like, that's a leader moment. I've never seen that from Ronaldo. I'm impressed. But then you hear something about like, oh, but he just broke the Euros assist record. And that's what worries me with Ronaldo and has always worried me about Ronaldo is, it's a team game, and I think Ronaldo plays it like an individual sport. And so, I had Portugal beating France, but, I'm going to pick that game in a few minutes, and I still don't know who I'm going to pick because France doesn't know how to get going forward, and Portugal might figure it out, but France are really stout defensively, and I think Ronaldo doesn't know how to get the most out of his teammates. So we'll get there when we get there, but that's a game I still don't know what I'm going to pick. And this was the first one I got wrong. And of all the games for me to get wrong, I'm okay with this being the one. Um, I also got the Turkey Austria game wrong, which I'm not okay with. I'm very upset about that one, but we'll get to it. At the time, this was the one I got wrong. And, I had the winner. I had Romania losing in the next game anyway, so I wasn't too upset. And to be honest, um, I think the game still went how I thought it would. I think Romania were the better team systematically. Um, they came out at points and really good. And I think both the first Dutch goal and the second Dutch goal came against the run of play. But I think that's what the difference was for the Dutch in this game was that they put their chances away. You always get chances, whether or not you're bossing possession or you're not seeing the ball. And I think against Austria was putting their chances away, and the Dutch were putting their chances away. And in this game, when Romania had bossed the possession, they just couldn't finish. So as much as people were like, "Oh, it's a great Dutch performance," I think that game went exactly how I thought it would, which is the game went exactly how the game against Austria went. Romania just didn't score like Austria did. It was a shootout. And I thought the shootout would benefit Romania, and that's where I was wrong. Romania didn't take their chances, and Austria had. Um, but and this is this is the last game, but I don't think the Dutch are going to go any further. It's the last quarterfinal I'm going to pick, but I'm spoiling it. I will pick Turkey to win that game for sure, for sure. Not impressed by the Dutch, even in that 3-0, game. Um, both goals against the run of play, and then they benefited a lot from the momentum off of those goals. But it's a game of momentum, and they took advantage of it. And fair, credit to them. But you know, not every team is going to allow you to come back into the game against the run of play. You play against certain teams, and you're going to have to show up differently at times. And then I think the Netherlands got lucky to score when they did, because I think if Romania kept knocking on the door the way they were, they would have scored and they would have taken the lead and they would have won the game. But fair credit to the Dutch, I wasn't impressed. This was the best game of the tournament. Best game of the tournament. Best game I listened to it on the radio. I was at work, so I couldn't watch. I watched the highlights and I listened to it. Wow, my ears were being like shredded by chance, blah, blah, blah. All game. There was never a moment where I was like, oh, this is kind of dull and boring. There was something happening all the time, back and forth. And I'm happy about both of these teams. I think both of these teams were entertaining all tournament. And I think it's unfortunate they got matched up against each other, because I do think that had these teams played other teams, I think both of them would have won. Austria plays the Netherlands, they win. Turkey plays the Netherlands, they win. Either of them plays Romania, I think they win. Either of them plays Slovakia or Slovenia or Denmark or Italy. And then you go into these quarterfinalists and you're like, I think either of these teams could have beaten Switzerland. I'll say I think either of these teams would have beaten Switzerland. I think either of these teams would have beaten England. I don't know about France. I don't know about Portugal. I will say no to Spain and Germany. But I think, that's of the 16 teams, I'm saying they only would have for sure lost to two of them and maybe four. But that's 12 teams that I think, they got them. They would have beaten 12 teams. Or I guess 10, because there's the two of them. But 10 teams 10 teams I think either of them would have beat. So it's unfortunate they got matched up against each other. In the end, I think both teams played the game that they wanted to play. And, I think it just comes down to Turkey took more of the chances that, Turkey had less chances and they took them. And Austria had more chances and they didn't. Um, but that defending from Turkey was sensational. I mean, the save at the end from Baumgartner's header, oh my, oh my goodness, it might be the save of the tournament. It might be one of the best saves I've ever seen. And yeah, it's not a top corner save, but the reaction. I mean, that ball's come across all the way across the goal. He's heading it back across. That's how you're taught to do it. Goalkeeper is going one way, and now all of a sudden he has to go back the other way. That is difficult. And he gets there and he palms it away. And not just that, he doesn't palm it right into a danger area where another Austrian player can tap it home. It's out. It's out of danger. It's sensational. And I think the crowd really spurred them on. But that passion, and I said it before the tournament, that passion like that can be dangerous because it can send you over the edge. But I also said that I thought the order of the group stage games was perfect for them. They could beat the Georgian side and get that confidence. Then they have a tough game against Portugal where they're probably going to lose, and they did. And that kind of hurts your confidence. But you go into that final game and we've got 3 points. We can go through, likely with just a draw. And so they go into that game with a lot of confidence and they win. So that Portugal game, confidence wise, is basically out because they go into that first game, they win it, they lose to Portugal, but they're like, yeah, we kind of expected to lose to Portugal and we can still go through. So that Czechia game just builds on the confidence from the first game. So that bad energy, that bad juju isn't there. And then you score 57 seconds into the game. Oh man, they're on their high horse. I mean, they are their energy is unreal. Their coach said, like, please don't get carried away, and they didn't. They have harnessed the energy well. The Turkey support has been amazing. Um, the one thing I would worry about is like if things get really tough, if they come across a moment that is mentally hard, will that positive energy stay or is it going to shift? Have they built up enough confidence for that passion to stay in them and stay positive? Or are they going to start, making cheap fouls and giving away cheap free kicks or trying to force the ball downfield? Passion is good, but it needs to be harnessed. And if you don't harness it, you're going to make silly mistakes. You're going to playing too much with your emotion isn't good. So I think it's dangerous for Turkey. On the other hand, Austria, I think for me, I have a new national team that I'm going to cheer for consistently because I love the way that they play. High press and super quick attacking game. It's positive, and yet it's also you don't need all the best. You could. This is a system you could play with the worst players in the world, the best players in the world. All you need to play this system is buy-in. And because of the Red Bull system, they might have the most buy-in of any national team in the world. Maybe outside of some of these South American teams that buy in just for the pure sake of like pura vida, let's live football, right? Besides those teams, they might have the most passion and buy-in to the system of any team in the world. Not passion, buy-in, because they're playing Turkey. They were playing Turkey, so can't say passion, but buy-in. They have more buy-in. They are fit. They want to play in that system. It's a hard system to play. There's a reason not everybody plays it because it's a hard system. You can play it with anybody, and if you do it well, you're going to win games. And if I was a coach, that's the system I would want to play with all my players. But you need the right mentality of players. You need the right breed of players. The players you want to bring in. It's less about how they play and more about who they are. And I think Austria had the exact perfect team to play that way. And I think they were really good. In the end, being down in the way they were, that's when you need the talent that they don't necessarily have, like a France or an England would have. But, it's a rare occasion where that system is going to let you down in that way. And yeah, at some points you do need players to step up, and they weren't able to do it. But they're vastly entertaining. I love the way that they play, and I think as these players grow in the system and gain more confidence in the system, they're just going to get better. And as the players, and I think this is another part of the system that's really good, the players get better on their own and they come back to the national team. There's no like, okay, well, how do we fit you in now? No, the system is there. It's going to stay the same. It's going to be consistent. You know how to play. The only thing that's going to change is you have more talent to have in the system. So I'm Ralph Ragnick for me, sensational manager. I think he should be manager of the tournament, and they didn't even go that far. But the system, it was brilliant. Turkey got the better of them. What a game! I wish it was the final of the whole thing, because that would be a fitting end to a tournament when two teams go at it like that. But with that being said, we're into the knockout rounds. Talking about Spain and Germany first. Uh, I think it's obvious who I'm going to pick. I said at the beginning, or when I was talking about Spain's game, I still think that they're going to win the Euros. That result, if anything, just made me more confident. And when I had this game when I picked the knockout phases originally, and this was a tighter one to pick. It's not that tight for me anymore because, um, like I said, I think the Germans are still new to their system and they don't have it down in the way that they need to have it down. And Spain does have it down in the way that they need to have it down. And yeah, Germany, when the system was easy against a team like Scotland or Hungary, they got it. But when it got tougher and when the questions started being asked, and when you don't necessarily know how to play in the system against a team that set up really defensively like Denmark did and hit you on the counter, or a team that played you as tough as Switzerland did, I think it gets difficult. And Spain are going to be even more difficult than Switzerland and Denmark. So for me, I think it's just too early for this German side, but I think the only way for them to go is up. Uh, the same players are going to be there for a long time. Gundogan might shift out. He's on the older side of things, but that's just one player. The team is young, the team is ready, and I think Nagelsmann is just going to get them learning the system more and more. So I think there's a lot of potential for growth for them, and that's it. I think that they have a lot to look forward to. It's just a little too soon for them. I think they might win the World Cup in 2026. Right, 2 more years in the system, they might figure it out by then. They might have it down by then. I just, it's been a year, and a lot of the teams that they've played in this year in this system, they've been easy games, and now you start having to do the system in a tougher situation, and it's hard. It's hard. It's a challenge. When things are new to you, it's always a challenge. So for me, Spain have been the best team in the tournament. For me, any team that they play, I would pick them to win. But there are reasons why I don't think Germany will win this game. They've been really good, and in a few years, this game would be really good because the talent is pretty equal, and the systems are both brilliant systems built for the players. It's just Spain has more experience. They have more time in the system, more time with the manager, and for me, that's what's going to do it. Experience, chemistry, cohesion, and time. So Spain semifinalists, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. But Germany, again, maybe not what they would have hoped for, but I think that this would be a tournament that they could hang their heads high and be really proud of, especially going into 2026. This is really something to build on. So it's positives for Germany despite going out. Spain, though, I have them going through. And like I said, these next two games, I don't know yet what I'm going to pick. I don't want to sit here and think. I will say this game can go three ways. And I'm going to pick France to win because of the three ways it can go. I think the most likely way, probably about a 40% chance that France still struggle offensively and Portugal figure things out. That kind of got lost in not playing against Georgia and then struggling against a really defensive team. They figure it out and they get it down, right? I think that's maybe we'll say like a 30% chance. No, I'll say 40. It's a 40% chance that the game goes that way in my mind. And if that's the case, Portugal win because Spain can't score and Portugal will punish them defensively, unlike some of the other teams that they've played against. I don't know how long it'll take, but if France isn't scoring, they're not going to win in that game. Another way it could go And this is also a likely way. I'd say maybe this way is also let's say let's say this is like I'll give it a 40% chance as well. And in this game, France win. So then we're at a 50-50 who's going to win, right? 40% Portugal, 40% France. This way is that Portugal don't figure it out. And I don't think that's because of anything Portugal related. I think similarly to Slovenia, France are a hard team to break down. And I think that they could get frustrated with that. And the chemistry, it's easy to figure things out. Like same thing with who was I just talking about? Germany. It's easy to play that way against the lesser teams, but can you figure it out on the fly against a difficult team defensively? Um, I think it's very possible that they struggle to figure out how to break down the French defense. And instead of that chemistry coming back that they had against Turkey, it remains lacking. And then you got a Cristiano Ronaldo figure who is going to get frustrated with his players, and the players are going to get frustrated with each other. And that's not a good environment. And on the other hand, France win those games. When it's close and neither team can do anything attacking wise, France get some lucky deflection and an own goal or a penalty and they win. So it's 40-40 then. And then that last 20%, in my mind, is what decides it because it puts it 60-40 to France for me. That last 20% is a 20% chance that France figure out how to attack. And if France figure out how to attack, it doesn't matter what Portugal do because that French team that went to the World Cup finals um, a year and a half ago, doesn't get beaten by anyone. I mean, it does not get beaten by anyone outside of, I would say, like Spain would give that team a fight and Argentina give that team a fight. And that might be it. That might be it. I think they beat anybody else. Um, So that's 60% chance for France. And 40 of it is like a boring game where nobody's playing well. And 20 of it is they play well. But I think Portugal's only chance in this game is they play well. If France play well, they lose. And if they don't play well, they lose. So it has to be perfect from Portugal. And I think that Portugal playing the best in itself of the three possible results, Portugal playing well and France not playing well offensively, that's the most likely of the three. But it's 2-1, and in that 2-1, France win. So there's two situations where France win, and I'm picking France. And I just thought of that on the fly. That was ball knowledge right there, man. I'm 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 right. France is going to win that game, and if they don't, it's because Portugal figured things out and France could not figure things out. This game might be even harder to pick because I don't see England figuring it out. And Switzerland already have it figured out. But unlike this last game, if this game was played on paper, it's an easy England win because they have way more talented players. And I mean quantity. Oh, quantity and quality, I guess. I don't know if Switzerland have a single player in their starting 11 better than the England front four. And you could include Cole Palmer into that. Does Switzerland have a better player than Cole Palmer? Does Switzerland have one player better than Cole Palmer, Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, or Phil Foden? I don't think they have one player better than any of the five of them. But England don't know how to play yet. They don't have the system that they don't have it figured out. For so far, it's been like similar to France. It's like, okay, we got our defense. We don't know how to attack, so we just have to get lucky. And unlike France, I don't see them figuring it out. I think there is a chance that France figure it out. I don't think there's a chance that England figure out how to attack under Southgate because the players that are currently in the team aren't made to play in Southgate's system under the pressure of the England badge. If Southgate played a more free flowing system that wasn't as rigid, then yeah, they could figure it out because there's pressure from um, the media, but not from the manager. The manager's telling you to go do it, so you're going to go do it, right? But I think Southgate doesn't necessarily want them to go take on players every time, and that's how they want to play. And so it's difficult to get that confidence. I think if Cole Palmer and Kobe Minu start, that's really positive for England. But I think it would take a England miracle for them to win. And talking about it, I feel like I'm persuading myself to choose Switzerland, but it's so hard not to pick this English team. My heart tells me England because they have that much talent. My gut, my brain, my football knowledge says to pick Switzerland. And so I'll go against the grain, and I'll go against what I predicted originally from this game. Going into the knockout phase, I said this was going to be the matchup and England would win. This is going to be the matchup. Switzerland are going to be in the semifinals. And then I already said this game, and yeah, like I don't know why, but all of these other, what a cool edit. The BBC made this one, and then like these are like cool edits that people made for these two games, and there wasn't one for England Switzerland yet because I guess that game is the next day. But then the BBC didn't make an edit for this game, and it's also the next day, so there's no like cool photo for it. So I just this is what I found, but I think this is the easiest game to predict of this round, and it's Turkey. It's Turkey because the Dutch need to get lucky to win games. That's how it is. And I think for Turkey, they have proved that they can beat teams that are better than them. So for me, it's pretty simple, and I think it's easy to pick Turkey. I think they'll have incredible amounts of support. I think that unlike Romania, that Turkey have proved that they punish teams and they know how to do it off of set pieces. So if the Dutch are under pressure, they're going to have to give away set pieces at points, and Turkey will capitalize on them. So I think for me, I think that the Dutch will be hoping that this game goes similarly to the Romania game because they don't have a system that works for them. So they just have to sit back and try and play defense because their players aren't getting the best out of themselves. They're clinical in the final third. They really are. They're clinical in the final third, but they're not going to have a lot of the ball. They're going to give away a lot of chances, and Turkey are going to be clinical, unlike Romania, and they're going to be more clinical like Austria. And so I see this game going more like the Austria game than the Romania game. And so I have Turkey, which gives us an interesting two semifinals where you've got Spain versus France. What a game! What a game with club players. And then you've got Turkey, Switzerland. And I would say I would much rather watch Turkey, Switzerland because I like the systems better. And maybe that's just because I watch so much soccer that I like the tactics and stuff. But I also think games like that are way more entertaining. When there's not as much talent on the field, it has to become a game of systems. And when it's a game of systems, it becomes a little bit more open. It becomes a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more fast paced. It's not cagey. Um, so I think Turkey, Switzerland, that'll be a great game. If it happens, I'll be really happy. Those are my quarterfinal picks. That's what I thought of the games. And I'll be back tomorrow doing, the Euro video that I tried to make before the round of 16, predicting the rest of the knockout rounds that was missing the audio. I'm going to be doing exactly that with audio for the Copa America tomorrow. I just need to give myself a little bit of time because I am still heartbroken about the USMNT. And that video, there might be a button, I think it would be over here somewhere, that lets you click onto that video. And if you're somebody who watches soccer and you're in the US, I would suggest you do so because I have insane ball knowledge. This has been Salibo Football, and I'll catch you in the next one tomorrow.